Hey everyone, Second Split here with my first ever video. So if you're here with me right now, you're one of my first supporters, or maybe my channel's actually doing well in the future and you've come back to see how it all started. I'm not sure, but if you're here regardless, I appreciate it. Thank you. And let's get started. So I'll be honest, I wanted to start this channel for a while, but I couldn't really decide on what I wanted to do for my first video. I think I finally settled on a topic that makes sense, at least in my head, since this is my first video for my channel. Maybe do some kind of introduction for people looking to get into iRacing. So I think that's what we're going to do. So for everyone who doesn't know, iRacing is a very realistic, simulation-focused racing game. They'll go all the way to say it's purely a simulation. But they are always working on it and tweaking on it. So I wouldn't say that it is 100% real-life emulator. But, you know, it's pretty close. I'd say it's one of the closest, although R Factor 2 and Automobilista, I heard, are giving it a run for its money. But it's been a game that's been around for quite a while. It's always focused on multiplayer racing with licenses and well, safety rating pretty much. License rating, so you got to work your way up through tiers of different motorsport, and you kind of get tiered in with people who are of similar skill level as you, and hopefully of the same level of clean racing. Hopefully, but doesn't always work out that way, as I'll show you guys coming up here later in the video. But before we get into the nitty-gritty details and the rest of the video, since this is my first one, I'm just going to give a real quick, my main goal here, if you're following me, wondering why, why is this guy making videos, why another channel? I just want to encourage everyone to, maybe those people that haven't taken that first step into simulation racing, to encourage them and make them feel a little less intimidated that people are just going to, bump them off the track, then blame them, say it's their fault, and pretty much just give them a bad taste in their mouth. I want to show that there's actually good racing out there. There's no one game that's going to give you a clean race every time, but, the more that people can see that there's actually good racing out there, hopefully we can grow the sim community, and the more people that race, then hopefully the better races we have. So one of the biggest complaints that I hear when trying to convince friends or people that I'm talking to get into PC sim racing is the actual cost barrier, and that's going to be your biggest problem. I hear it all the time. Consoles, they are getting a little bit more expensive with every generation, which is a good thing for people trying to get into PCs, that there's less and less reason to go for a console versus getting a cheaper, lower-end PC. And that's what I'd kind of like to talk about here. On screen we've got, your awesome top-of-the-line Corsair, water-cooled, this and that. And that's what everyone thinks they need when someone tells them they need to get into PC gaming. But it's not necessarily. A main reason I recommend iRacing is its low system specs. So if you don't have a gaming PC yet, you haven't invested at all into PC gaming, you don't have any PC simulation gear or anything like that, it's a great place to start. Because the system specs for iRacing are actually quite low compared to some of the games that are released today, you can actually get a computer that runs iRacing decently cheap. Now, I just did a little bit of research just now. Now, you can check this yourself if you just scroll down here on the iRacing website, and you can see your system specs here. This is at least their minimum requirements for what they say should smoothly run the game. Now, if you take some of this information here, and then I just really quick jumped over to Newegg, and mind you, I didn't spend very much time doing this research, so I'm sure there are probably better deals out there. Depending on the time of year, you can get some great deals around 4th of July, Christmas, that kind of thing. But just doing a quick search, I went over here, just did, gaming PCs sorted by price, and then found the first one that looks like it fit in the system specs. And it is a refurb, but it should work great. It's about $500, and this will run iRacing pretty much perfectly. Should be great, smooth, and no problem for you. Now, the biggest counter-argument I hear is, well, if I buy a gaming PC, it's going to get outdated really quick, right? I'm going to have to spend, hundreds of dollars to keep it up and this and that, and then I can just go and buy a console that's already cheaper anyway, and then I don't have to worry about upkeeping it. And it is true you may have to invest in some upgrades to it in the next year, 2 years, something like that, if you do get the lowest price PC tower. But console prices, like I said earlier, have been going up and up and up. So these days, you get yourself an Xbox Series X or one of the Xbox One S's. They're both still around $500, which is pretty much the exact same price as that PC tower. Now, the same thing with the console as the PC. These prices could be variable depending on what website you look at, what time of year you're looking, sales, so on and so forth. So this isn't a definitive, this costs this much. It's just a real quick comparison I was doing to just show the price of PC gaming has honestly either come down or console prices have gone up. But either way, it's much more of a tangible idea to think about investing in PC gaming, just because the price of consoles are pretty much comparable to a low-end PC these days, and you can do a lot with the PC. All right, so now that we've covered our basic PC system info, and you have an idea what you could buy to get into PC gaming or racing or whatever you feel like doing, let's take a look at the sim equipment. So this right here is the first wheel I ever had. I got it for the PlayStation 1, for the original Gran Turismo 1 and 2. It does not have a clutch. It does not have any shifters. Well, okay, so the picture shows paddle shifters. This isn't the exact wheel I had. This is even a little more advanced than what I started on. And I am not finding a picture of the wheel I had at all. It had a lap band like this picture does. So you'd actually strap it to either side of your legs, and your legs would be bruised by the time you were done racing after an hour or two, because all of the force is being put on, your left or right outside of your leg. The only other way you could mount it was suction cups, which I'm sure you can imagine did not work. And I remember my parents literally duct taping the wheel to a TV tray because we could not find a way to keep the thing stable. So wheels have come quite a ways since then, but you really don't need those super fancy features that the newest wheels have. Force feedback's great, but you're talking about a good $150-$200 price hike from a non-force feedback wheel. And while it is nice to have, you don't necessarily need it. So for reference, this is the wheel I've got. It's a Logitech G920. They have the G29 also, which is just the PlayStation 4 version of the same wheel. And it's the improvement over Logitech's G27, which I think was released over 10 years ago now, something like that. It's a good wheel. It has good force feedback. It's gear driven. But if you're just getting into sim racing, I would say you don't need something like this. It's nice, but I've graduated up to this point knowing that I love doing this, and I want a better wheel to feel those, little bumps and scrapes and dips in the road that help you to get better lap times. Do you need it to just get around the track? No, definitely not. And just to show you real quick, the wheel goes for about $300. It's on sale right now on Amazon for $250. But you're still looking at about $150 more than some of these other wheels I got picked out here that are good starter ones. And if you don't think that you want to invest all this money up front, you don't have the money to invest up front, but you just want a wheel to be able to, keep the car on the track pretty much, I would go for something cheaper and decide after you've used that wheel for, a month, 2 months, something like that, then decide, do I want to spend more money? Do I want to upgrade? Do I want to go to the next level of what, because there are many different entry point levels for wheels. And on the flip side of things, there are also much cheaper wheels than that. Just picked up a couple real quick here to show you. I've never personally used these wheels. I'm sure there's reviews on them out there if you're actually interested in them. But this one goes for $100. It says it's compatible with all modern consoles. It's got a shifter. The only thing it looks like it doesn't have is a clutch. I don't believe it's force feedback, and it is 180 degrees. But if you're just getting into racing, this should be all you really need. It's something that allows you to turn the wheel, a particular direction and hold it there, because that's really what gives you a lot of your consistency in online racing. If you're looking for a reputable brand, Thrustmaster is a brand that's been around for a really long time. They got this wheel for $70, no shifter, no clutch, but once again, trustworthy. it's not going to break on you. I can almost guarantee you that. I know Thrustmaster is a brand that is well built. $70, nice and cheap, something that's good for a starter. Not sure that you want to invest in this yet, is a great wheel. And if you want to go even cheaper, this one's for $50. It does come with a set of pedals, so everything that the Thrustmaster had, just probably a little less on the build quality and features, but still a great starter wheel. Looks like it's got 4 out of 5 stars, probably decent if you're just looking for a cheap, quick, wheel to buy and get racing. All right, so we covered all the equipment we're going to need, the wheel, PC tower, that good stuff. So let's talk about the game itself. Unfortunately, this is probably my least favorite part, but iRacing is a subscription-based game. So you will have to be paying monthly, the 3-month. You can buy a year subscription, and it does go on sale quite often. But if we're talking full price, I believe it's $12 for 1 month, 30 or so for 3, and over 100 for a year. But these things do go on sale quite a bit. The other thing is very important, is that all new accounts can use a code to get 3 months for a heavily discounted price, which is really nice if you're kind of on the edge about buying a subscription-based game that you don't even know if you might be interested in the first place. I highly, highly recommend finding this. I think it changes every couple of months, maybe about every 6 months they'll change the code, so you have to look it up, and it took me a little bit of searching, but it looks like the code right now, if you want to get the 3 months for $5 a month, is PR Hot Laps. So if you go into iRacing and you create a new account and you put that in the promo code area, you will get 3 months super cheap compared to the full price of iRacing, to give you a nice little demo test run of it and see if you like it. And let's say you buy that 3 months membership and you're happy with the price at that point, but you're worried after that 3 months it's going to be a little too expensive for you. You might have to take a month or 2 off while you lose your account subscription status, waiting for one of the 2 yearly sales to go on for the subscriptions. But I highly recommend waiting for them. As you can see on the screen right here, this is one of the sales going on right now, actually. So it gives you a good idea of how much you're looking to save. I like to buy a year at a time. It saves you a good third off the price or more. It's 40% off right now, so even more. And it's a great way to just have your subscription bought. It's pretty much the same as a lot of subscription-based services these days. And, 10 years ago, when this game was a lot newer and a lot more groundbreaking, I would say, it was probably a lot more off-putting to people with the subscription-based pricing. Nowadays, though, with so many things going to subscription-based service, it's not really that bad, honestly, in my opinion. And I'm one of those people that never really liked World of Warcraft because I couldn't see justifying paying a monthly price for one game when I could buy, a bunch of games for the same price. But after playing iRacing for this long and investing a decent amount of time and money into it, I can say, I'm not sure about you, but my official recommendation is that it's worth a try. I would go get that 3-month discount and give it a try for yourself. I highly recommend it. Unfortunately, one of the most off-putting things I've heard about the game is that on top of the subscription you're expected to pay for monthly, you also have to purchase the cars and tracks that aren't included with the subscription on top of continuing to pay for your monthly subscription. So the most overwhelming thing that players see is that, yes, you get quite a few cars and tracks that you see here. It's included with the basic subscription, and it looks like quite a bit. But depending on what series you're getting into, it will still feel like you do not have very many cars or tracks at all. And some series, you might be looking at purchasing 8 or 9 tracks to be able to compete in the entire season. That's a little excessive. You probably don't need to do that, especially if you're just trying to, stick your toe in the water and feel it out. But it's something to keep in mind that if you're thinking you're going to move up in the game, there's more money to be spent, unfortunately, unless you're going to stay in the lower leagues, the, cars that they include with the base subscription. Now, if you're mostly interested in circuit racing like me, The biggest thing is about half of these tracks listed here are going to be usable for you. The other half are oval racing or dirt tracks, but that's just to allow you to pretty much dabble in any of the types of racing that you want to with the base subscription, which is nice of them. But as far as cars you'll actually be using when circuit racing, that's going to be your MX-5 here, Kia, Cadillac CTS, and the Solstice. Alright, so now it's time that we actually get to some actual racing, which I'm sure is what you guys are waiting for. So I'll give you a couple of actual scenarios and examples that happened to me that I feel like showcase some things you might run into pretty perfectly, and let you know the best way I think to deal with them, at least, to preserve your driver rating and actually advance up through the licenses. Alright, everything here is from the same race. I figured to give you guys a good idea of exactly what a race might look like. Instead of splicing a bunch of different ones together, this will give you a good idea of exactly what happened to me and what might happen to you. So first thing going in here is a very common thing. People seem to wait to brake way too late. In his defense, I probably hit my brakes a little too early, but at the same time we're going into turn one. We don't need to be slamming on the brakes at the very last second, and as a result, I end up getting tossed off the track. If you end up here, don't worry about it. It's going to happen more times than you can count. Fortunately and unfortunately, most of the time you're going to be okay. As you can see, I just get right back on the track, head down, and we're going to get it right around this corner, and I think there's someone else spun out. So it's a pretty common thing in rookies. Just stick with it, get back on the track, and you'll probably catch up to at least half the pack. Coming around this corner, there's the guy in the green that actually knocked me off at the first corner, so he's involved with someone else. He's apparently causing a nuisance of himself on the track. But as you can see, it's a pretty common occurrence. Unfortunately, I wish more people would take the time to admit their fault if they knocked you off the track. You know, say sorry, wait on the side of the track, whatever that may be. But most of the time, unfortunately, I don't think this is iRacing only, most of the time they're not going to apologize, most of the time they're not going to wait. That's just what I've noticed. I wish it were different, but there's nothing you can really do about it. You just get back on the track and keep going. So coming around the corner here, we got our next perfect little example here. We've got some people that kind of got tangled up. The guys that I'm running with go around the outside. Now, most of the time, I feel like people aren't as cautious as they should be. Sometimes I also feel like maybe I'm too cautious. I don't know exactly what one of those that was in this case, but this guy runs into the back of me and throws himself off the track, and then almost takes me out again coming back onto the track, and you can see him just continuing on in the back there, not hitting his brakes, not trying to keep the car under control at all. The thing is when you go off the track, you're going to get a 2-time incident count. You get 17 of those, and then you're kicked out of the race automatically. If you lose control when you go off the track, you get a 4 times, and if you hit somebody, you also get a 4 times incident. So you want to try, even if you've gone off the track, even if someone spun you out, you still want to try and minimize the damage in that situation as much as possible, because the less damage you do to your car and the less incident counts you rack up just means that much likely you're going to get kicked out of the race, or your car is going to sustain serious damage. So we're jumping ahead a couple laps here from 2 to 6. Things were pretty boring. I kind of just kept up with these guys in front of me, but this is unfortunately where the video takes a more serious turn, and I'm going to preface this that this is not, at least in my experience, a normal occurrence. This is something I would expect more along the lines of, you know, a bad Project Cars 2 lobby or a Forza incident. But if you look up ahead, the yellow car is the yellow car that actually hit me in the last clip and then went off into the sand. Well, right here, I think he's about hit his maximum frustration because he decides to torpedo some guy who was, I don't know, a good 2-3 laps ahead of him off into the grass for no reason because he was frustrated. Not quite sure why, and this is why I was saying earlier in the video, even with iRacing, even with the subscription service and the licenses and everything, you're still going to end up with some a-holes. That's just how it goes. Like I said, I don't think there's any one game where you're going to have a perfect race every time, but iRacing does usually keep those people out of the race. So, you know, not trying to scare you guys or anything, it will possibly happen. And just try and avoid it, and if it does, it's just one of those, hey, move on and try another race. So we're going to go ahead and skip the last lap here and kind of cover the last little thing I wanted to get to. If you notice throughout the video in the bottom right, that's where your black box is. It can be moved around wherever you want. I highly recommend experimenting with it when you get into iRacing, but hands down, without a doubt, the most useful tool out of the black box is the one I have on right now, which is the relative screen. It's going to give you your live splits. It's going to let you know where everyone is on the track, regardless of who's been lapped and who's not. It shows people who are a lap down as blue, people who are about to lap you as red. It's got tons of information that's really helpful, especially if you're a new driver. You want to make sure that you're just watching those numbers. You got somebody who's a lap ahead of you coming up on you. Kind of just watch out for them, and vice versa. And it'll just give you a good idea of what's going on the track, pretty much. Because your only other tools to see are your mirrors. There is no mini map. There is no other split system. That's pretty much it. So like I said, highly recommend using that throughout the race. It's going to give you a good idea where everyone is. If someone's catching you, if you're catching someone else. Can even help if someone's alongside you, because you can tell the split's 0, which means that they're right there. So very useful. Alright guys, I think that's going to do it for me for this video. I think I've touched on every basic that I wanted to get to, and hopefully I've convinced some people that maybe they should get into iRacing when they didn't consider it before. There's definitely some good racing here. I know I enjoy it. I play it all the time, and hopefully I can convince some other people to come and join us too, get the sim community to grow, and end up with more people to fill the lobbies up. So, appreciate you guys sticking it out with me for this long, and I hope that you learned something, at least. But even if you didn't, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I'd appreciate a like, and I'm going to be releasing tons of content in the future, so if you like what I did, or you hope that maybe I'll do something better in the future, you can hit subscribe, and I'll try and keep the content coming. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.